You. Yes, I'm talking to you. You deserve a break. Enjoy a moment of indulgence. It's time for Zanna Coffee. Guilt-free pleasure. Zanna Coffee is the organic coffee to amplify your senses and enhance love for life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Only the best organic and GMO-free coffee beans from around the world that I selected. Zanna Coffee brings you happiness in every cup. Fair trade certified, sustainable organic coffee. That means we do not use slaves. Free Zanna songs with every coffee bag. Find Zanna Coffee at www.zannacoffee.com www.zannacoffee.com. Get your coffee bag now. Don't be cheap. Life is too short and you deserve the best. Zanna Coffee. Okay guys, here we go. This is Luca Zanna. You're listening to Love, Guns and Freedom on K-Talks 1340 AM and on United States to the FM network. First hour, it's about elections. Why that's so important? Because I tell you something, this is the last hope we have. State level, yes, I think we have more control to try at least to be educated and to try to find local, let's say, people, because after all, I don't want to elect politicians, but sometimes we lose hope, of course, at the federal elections. And I lost hope a long time ago. I'm telling you, I lost hope in both parties. That's why I left the Republican Party a few years ago. I was disgusted, and now many other Republicans, finally, they start to see it. Like also many Democrats, regardless we agree or not on which positions, the point is that you really don't count. The point is you're just a little puppet. The point is they want to give you the illusion that you are there to vote for something, but at the end, both parties, they already have it all done. And the agenda is not that different. It's about more control, more destruction of our rights, and of course the bigger government. Because at the end, what they want, the state is the new God. Now, it is funny, and I've been sarcastic here, in these Arizona elections for the federal Senate, for the U.S. Senate, they talk about, of course, McCain, that is a scumbag, simple as that. Don't start to tell me the crap about, he's a veteran. No, he was a fraud of a veteran too. I mean, he was a disaster as a soldier, okay? And I'm not even going there. Forget about it. So I'm not going to thank him for his service because he was one of the biggest losers in his academy. He destroyed several airplanes. He was captured, and he was also Hanoi Hilton, what is called the little sing bird. Anyway, forget about it. We're talking about the politician. Is worse than the soldier, okay? That's a fact. I mean, if you believe in global government and this point of the New World Order, McCain is the perfect puppet. Don't get me wrong. Go ahead with that. Then, of course, there is the alternative, and there is former Arizona State Senator Kelly Ward. In my opinion, she is another McCain in training with a skirt. Simple as that. When somebody has a funny smile all the way that she cannot change that expression no matter what she says, and she's proven in our district, here in Mojave County, that pretty much she's been completely changing her face depending where the wind comes on very important issue like geoengineering, aka chemtrails, that she wants to try to say we're a bunch of crazy. By the way, the CIA director was talking about geoengineering just 2 weeks ago on video at the Council of Foreign Relations. This stuff, it's old news. Since the 60s, we have these programs, okay? But that's another story. So anyway, what options do we have? Guess what? They don't talk about the Libertarian Party. And that's why I'm so glad I found out that there is a great lady, in my opinion, and this is my opinion, of course, you don't need to agree with me, that she's running for the U.S. Senate in the Libertarian ticket. Her name is Merissa Hamilton, and guess what? I like her. This is what I think. Merissa, are you there?
Yes, I am. Thank you for having me on your show today.
Thank you. I hope I didn't shock you, because I'm kind of straightforward when it comes down to things, so much that, Senator McCain used one of my segment to try to, put down Kelly Ward for one of the few things, in my opinion, she did right when she was opposing, or at least, she could not really oppose because she was in the state Senate, but she was against the idea of this National Defense Authorization Act of 2012, where the military can be used to be arresting American citizens without any type of due process, indefinitely detention. This is like before pre-Magna Carta. And on this one,
Right.
Kelly Ward, she was okay. She was agreeing, of course. And McCain, people listen to my show and they use against her, but that's another story. What do you tell us a little bit about you before we go into politics? Who is Merissa Hamilton?
Sure. Well, I am a business professional. I've lived in Arizona since 2000. Prior to that, I grew up in Connecticut, and I've always been very informed because when I was in Connecticut and my first year in Arizona, I was a journalist actually, and in the media, local media. So I have an understanding of the way the media works. And as I moved into having a career in business and being a business professional, I stayed involved in understanding what's happening and what's going on and staying informed. However, I wasn't very politically active. But as I moved along in my career, I kept finding situations where there was really cool projects I wanted to do, but government regulations kept interfering with the projects we wanted to do at the various companies I worked at. And as, especially, with the Patriot Act and then also many of the things that Obama has done that's been disastrous, I just saw that there was, that the government infringing on our rights was increasing, that it was happening much faster at a higher velocity than what we've seen in the past, and that regular citizens, people that are successful in their regular lives, needed to stand up and become active in our communities.
Yeah, I mean, this is very important. You're right. The last few years, we had an acceleration of the destruction of our Bill of Rights. I mean, this didn't start, of course, just with Obama. Obama gave the final plan of what also Bush started. And, of course, under Clinton, we had another big dose of legislation. But for sure, the last 17 years or so, with the excuse of fighting this, faceless enemy, starting from Al Qaeda, I call him Al Qaeda, that was created anyway in the 70s. That's a fact, by the CIA, and then of course now ISIS, that is fact and proven. That I mean, it's almost funny if it wasn't so serious. It's being financed by this administration, and now of course we have to go fight them. It's like creating the monster and then going after the monster. And meanwhile, we need to cower in fear and give our rights away. Now, Lisa, tell us a little bit about why the Libertarian Party can offer a difference with your platform. Of course, every Libertarian, they have something in common, but they also have some unicity. Why you think what is exactly different from you and the Democrats and, of course, the McCain or the Ward, also the Kelly Ward of the world? What do you think?
Sure. So, well, just going back to the whole concept of these wars that we're fighting that aren't constitutional, they haven't been sanctioned by Congress at all, and it's really from terrorism that we find very significant links back to our government for causing it. I mean, that's a huge difference right there with the Libertarian Party. We are non-interventionist. I think most people think of the Libertarian Party as isolationist, but that's going to be further from the truth. The Libertarian Party believes that the best way to protect America is to have the most powerful military in the world. But that does not mean that we create wars all over the world. What it means is that we have a military set up for self-defense, which is quite different than what we do today.
Yeah.
And that we have a non-interventionist principle behind how we operate our military, which is also quite different than what we have today. So rather than creating wars internationally, which is what we've largely seen for the last few decades, we believe in self-defense as what the purpose of the military should be used for. And we also believe in human rights. So we need to keep in mind that, we shouldn't allow for a Holocaust to happen, for example, internationally, but that oftentimes, though, intervention may cause bad governments to be and despots to be able to get into power. So that's a huge difference than what the other two parties believe. I mean, you have Donald Trump saying that he basically wants to carpet bomb the world. And then you have the Clintons who have a long track record of working with terrorists.
Yeah.
So, and then, and if you look locally, I mean, when you look at Ann Kirkpatrick, John McCain, and Kelly Ward, all of them are actually campaigning against John McCain. John McCain is campaigning against the things that he's done. And I mean, he's been implicated in arming and funding ISIS. When he was taking the pictures and bragging about working with the Syrian rebels. We now don't know those Syrian rebels became ISIS.
Yeah. I mean, this is almost, sorry, I'm interrupting you. I mean, it's so out there in our face, and there is a big part of the population that I really believe like they're almost like under a spell. No matter if they see, I don't know, McCain feeding, I don't know, give him, I don't know, a sandwich, making a sandwich to ISIS, okay, or loading up the rifle for them, they will still wouldn't believe it. It's like almost like a mental mind control. Seriously, I believe that, because this is so serious what you're saying. Continue, please.
Sure. I mean, and then we also need to look at other things like the Fast and Furious program that Obama did. How did guns that the federal government gave to the drug cartels, who I also consider terrorist organizations, how did those guns end up in France in a terrorist attack? And so this would be a huge difference between the Libertarian Party and the duopoly. I like to call the other two parties Republicans, because I really don't see a difference between the two of them. It's really what America needs to decide, and Arizona especially needs to decide. Are we going to continue with having authoritarians running our country and running our lives, or are we going to give liberty a chance?
Yeah.
We're going to return back to the Bill of Rights.
Exactly. The point is, do we have a constitution or not? That's the point. And the reality that both parties completely ignoring it. And for example, you say something very important. The last conflict, if you want to believe that the Congress is the authority to declare war, and I'm not saying the wars are fine just because Congress declared them, but at least we have a responsibility as we the people through the process of our Constitution. The last war we had that was legal was World War II. After that was just another conflict, under the United Nations. People forget that, maybe because they don't tell you the stuff at school. But if an immigrant like myself can find out, since Korea, Vietnam, and all this garbage, all the different little wars that they want to call them, Iraq 1, Iraq 2, and whatever, Syria, these are all under the United Nations and completely unconstitutional. So the point is, for all the people out there, especially in the Republican Party, that they think that they want to support the Constitution, hey, that's the first thing you should do. When they start to want to go to war, say Congress must declare war, not just some president acting crazy, thinking that is the new Hitler out there. So that's number one. Number two, something very important. They call now, just because you don't want to go out and pour more money into the military-industrial complex. By the way, we had a big warning from General Eisenhower. There wasn't exactly a hippie by then, okay? Was a general. I mean, let's not forget George Washington, the last speech, the farewell address, say, come on, guys. I mean, that guy wasn't exactly another hippie there, okay? He was warning us. We shouldn't be going around and doing alliances with other countries just to, go to wars and minding the business, not our business. We should trade with everybody, but at the same time, we shouldn't be used as puppets or, let's say, foot soldiers for somebody else's interest. So that's very important. That's why I think Libertarian Party is the only party out there that got that down together, and they're just following what our founding fathers had in mind. That's my interpretation. Don't you think that?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, the first plank on my platform is make the Senate constitutional again. And I contend that I am the only candidate for running for U.S. Senate that is actually going to be capable of upholding the constitutional role of the Senate affirmatively. And the reason for that is because, and that particularly has to do with the party that I am a part of versus the other two parties. My party requires me to maintain three duties. Number one, be a person of principle. Number two, legislate within the bounds of the Constitution and not infringe on the sovereignty of the individual. And number three, reduce the size of government. That's not what the Republicans do.
No.
And so what I contend, what I argue is that if Arizona simply sends someone to the Senate that will just do their job as outlined by the Constitution, which includes things like when the judicial branch starts legislating from the bench, they should be writing laws to undo those bad rulings. And then if it continues, they should be impeaching those Supreme Court justices.
Yep.
It also includes when the executive branch creates all these executive orders that are unconstitutional, that overwrite laws that Congress has created. Again, it's the Senate's job to hold the executive branch accountable, work with Congress to create new laws, and then if the president continues to violate his powers, impeach him. When was the last time we had a Supreme Court justice impeached?
Yeah, exactly. It's true. And there are a lot of things I think that are really important we're going to face the next few months, not even few years. I mean, for example, now the state is claiming ownership over our body, okay? That's pretty much the fact. And people say, what? Yes, it's true.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, look at Obamacare. They can tell you, you must buy that product because I say so. I mean, and also minor little things at federal level. They started like really, I think, like in good faith, like a feel good. I want to be sure that you're safe. Like the freaking safety belt, okay? People may laugh or not, but for me it's very important. I refuse to put a safety belt because the moment that I do it only when I want to do it, not because the government is going to, let's say, put fear into me. If I don't do that, if I don't put a seatbelt belt safety belt, I will have a fine. The moment that I do that because of fear of a fine means that I completely relinquish my body, my sovereignty of my body to the government. I mean, is that something sick that the government can tell you, by the way, I'm not endangering anybody. I'm in my own car, I'm there, and I don't want to hear a story like I'm start to fly from my window into your windows, okay? That's really one out of a trillions, okay? Please. The point is, once the government can decide and make you bend over and submit you that you must put a safety belt or you must put a helmet because they know what is better for you, you are a slave. Am I too extreme on this one, or maybe I'm too something?
No, the thing that's interesting about that is I had a conversation with someone that was a very important mentor in my life, my ballet teacher, actually.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a conversation with her a couple of years ago about this. And she said to me, Merissa, the first time that I saw that we were losing our rights was when the seatbelt law came into effect.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
And she thought the same thing. She said, if they can force you to put something, to wear something while you're in your car, that's where I realized they can force you to do anything. And for her, she had a dear friend that was killed in a car accident precisely because she was wearing her seatbelt. And then the car went over into a body of water. She couldn't undo the seatbelt and she drowned.
Wow, that's very sad too. My God.
And so for her, it was, when she saw the fact that seatbelts are not infallible, they can actually cause problems also. It was just the notion of the fact that where in the Constitution does the government have the authority to do something like that? And, and now that I move forward a few years later, one of the things that I've been working on is ending legal state child trafficking. And what that is that the federal government has incentivized the states with a lot of money, actually about $72,000 per child in Arizona, to take our kids,
yes,
put them in the foster system, take our kids for reasons that are not unsafe reasons, completely unconstitutional and really unlawful, and then put them up for adoption. And so we've gone from the 70s of having the seatbelt rule to now today, where the state can literally take your child for any reason or no reason at all. If they deem that your child is adoptable, your child has now become a commodity, and they can make a lot of money off of your child.
Well, Lisa, you just touched a topic that I have to completely stop drinking coffee like I'm doing now because my pressure is going to go crazy now. Seriously, what you said is so disgusting. I mean, not you, okay? I mean, what they're doing to us. I mean, it is so serious. I mean, people have to imagine for a moment, because maybe it doesn't happen to you. Maybe it's not happening to your family, okay? You have no more recourse. You have no more due process. You have no more any type of legality. Just you're in the hands of a judge that, by the way, we know very well can be corrupted. It's been proven in many states that they completely get paid off because even them, they also, they're part of the scheme. The point is, think about it. Just because somebody may say that you're unfit to be a parent, or maybe, for example, like in Hawaii, just a few days ago, a family, I talked about that last week, a father and mother did not want to give these vaccines to a little newborn I mean, we're talking about an amount of vaccines that not even a cow should be allowed to get, okay? With all the mercury they're going to put you into your body. A little baby just born, a few hours alive, and they say, no, we don't want this vaccine. Guess what? The state of Hawaii, because, it's a good, really at the new level of state as God, say, what? You don't like to put what we're supposed to give you? Guess what? We take your child. The police came, arrested the father, and the child was taken, and of course was vaccinated against their consent. If this is freedom, this is... No, I don't even think Hitler did that crap. Seriously. At least, they were treating a little better their own people. Okay, that's the bottom line. So I tell you, what you're saying is so important. The Child Protective Service, and there may be a situation that, of course, they may be also real situation, may be important, and they may be needed.
Oh, sure.
But if we look at really the statistics, the damage that they're doing to our families, and now there is no check and balance. That's the problem. You know very well. I mean, you don't have like a jury of your or your peers or stuff like that. I mean, you're in the hands of the judge. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Oh, it's worse than that.
Oh, great.
So the state of Arizona has a hearsay law, which means that a parent can have their rights terminated, literally terminated, not investigated, but literally terminated based on hearsay.
Oh my God.
And essentially the way that the state treats you is they treat you as guilty based on hearsay. And then they put you through what they call a case plan. And I had the opportunity to attend a parental rights termination. They called it TPR, termination of parental rights hearing, a couple of days ago. And on the stand, the lawyer for the mother that was that they were trying to terminate her rights, the lawyer for the mother asked the caseworker and said to her, essentially, he said that it is the state's role to terminate parental rights. Is that correct?
Yeah.
And she went to start answering a different question, and he said, no, that's not the question I asked you. The goal of the state is to terminate rights. Is that correct? And her answer specifically was, well, yes, that is the point of the case plan. So from the moment that the state shows up, their entire purpose is not actually, they say that they have a plan to reunify, for reunification, but all of the services, they then say, in the case of this mother, not only did she complete the case plan, but she did like another dozen or 24 services on top of that the state doesn't offer on parenting, counseling, personal development. Like this mom was on top of everything to improve, even though her kids would argue that she already was a good parent to begin with, and that wasn't enough for the state. The state's argument at the end of the day, over and over again, what I heard is, these children are adoptable. These children are great kids. These children are fantastic. They're highly adoptable. Highly adoptable. Wow. Highly adoptable.
Wow.
And so the entire, when you take the language that the state is using, and you take the admission from the caseworker that the entire purpose is to terminate parental rights, I look at it as the state comes, they look at the kids, they do the case plan to investigate, is this child adoptable? Are we going to make a lot of money off the foster care system with this child? Or, and in some cases, we've had parents reporting that if their children have severe medical conditions or rare diseases, that then the hospitals want to have, the pharmaceutical companies want to do testing on the child, so they'll remove parental rights for that reason. So they put them through the system to see where can we make the most money from these kids, and then argue that the reason why they have to put the kids in adoption and terminate parental rights is because they need to have the kids have permanent placement because the state took them in the first place.
Wow, this is disturbing. It would be a topic that we could do just an hour just about this, because I start to listen more and more stories, nightmare stories, and as I said, not because it's not happening to you means it's not real. That's a fact. Put yourself 1 second in the shoes of a father or a mother. Just because somebody maybe doesn't like you, maybe somebody has a grudge, or maybe just because they like your child. Okay, remember there is a big market. There is a market, a human trafficking market. You don't need to just go from the borders, from the southern borders. We have it here, legalized with our tax dollar. It's called the Child Protective Services. I tell you, I really, this is something I need to go through, and I would like to get more information for future show and get people with real life dramas, and we can talk, and we need to address this with our state legislators, because I think that the first layer of damage must be fixed there. Now, I need to move to other topics.
Absolutely.
Question. I love the Libertarian Party for many things. As I said, we don't need to agree on everything, but normally I try to look at least at 90%. Okay. One thing I always freak me out a little bit about the Libertarian Party is about immigration, open borders. I have friends in the Libertarian Party, and they are great people. I love them. I like the economics. I like the philosophy. I like the Second Amendment. I like everything. But when it comes down to these undocumented people, no borders, it freaks me out for two reasons. First of all, I believe every nation, to be considered a nation, we must be a sovereign nation, we must have borders. Otherwise, we become part of the global New World Order, number one. Number two, when we have people that we cannot control, they're coming here, unfortunately, this is not the America of 1700. There is a Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, there's so many other programs. They suck in, they can be part of the program, and more important, they can start to vote us out. So I really believe that we're supposed to have a control, like a house, a door, window with lock and keys. When you come here, you come as a guest, and you must follow the rules. And more important, if you want to be part of this country, you must have one concept in mind. This is not a democracy. This is a constitutional republic. Read the constitution, memorize it, or at least have an idea what's going on. And then we can go through the process like I did myself. What do you think about, what is your platform about immigration?
Sure. So, being in Arizona, I can see what's happened from having open borders, because essentially that's, a lot of people look at the border we have now, and that's what they consider it. But once I started researching it, what I realized is that there's actually a lot of other issues that are that the government, that the Republicans are refusing to solve, that are causing the issues that we actually have along the border. So I am very critical of the plan to build the wall. And the reason for that is because I don't find that it will be effective to actually solve the problems that we have today. So one thing that I think that the Libertarian Party could do a better job of communicating on is the fact that we've had a horrible foreign policy for many decades that have created a very unsafe world out there. We've also had horrible relations with Mexico that has allowed the drug cartels to actually increase their power and presence both in Mexico and in the U.S. So we need to be responsible for that. And so I have a plan on my Facebook page. It's at Vote Merissa Hamilton, where you can see what my comprehensive plan is for the border. Now, what I do is I don't target the fact that we need a wall. To me, that's sort of like putting a Band-Aid on a huge open wound. You don't, when you have a big gash and you need surgery, you don't put a Band-Aid on it. And that to me is what a wall is. Instead, we need to look at a few other things. So one thing is stop funding and arming terrorist organizations. Number two, we need to scrap the current immigration policy. I propose instead that we do more of an Ellis Island immigration policy where we do a health check, we do a serious security check, and then we're done. Right now, our current immigration policy is completely ineffective. Most of the issues we have with illegal immigrants actually comes from people that attempted to come here legally, the system failed, and they lost track of them. So we need to change the immigration system to be something that we can manage and that's effective to keep us safe. The third piece is scrapping our current tax policy. Our current policy has created black markets, and that's what allows illegal immigration to thrive. Because with these black markets, we've created motivation for people to come here illegally and stay under the radar. So I support Gary Johnson's fair tax plan, which is a consumption tax. It eliminates the income tax and eliminates the corporate tax, replaces it with a consumption tax, and that creates a fair tax for everyone. In addition to that, though, I think we need to get rid of the welfare programs, like you said, and replace that with a dollar-for-dollar real-time tax rebate. That's for specific services that help the community. So what this would do is this would eliminate the black markets, allow everyone to contribute to society, at the same time not eliminating helping people that need to have a little bit of extra assistance. But because it would be real people empowering the free market, you'd eliminate the cronyism that comes from our federal government. And then a couple of more things that are really important is doing what we need to do to eliminate the streams of the drug cartels, because that's really where most of the crime comes from the border. And when you go back to talking about vaccines, I don't think that the government should have the right to force medicine on us. I also don't think the government has the right to prohibit medicine. So I advocate not only for legalizing marijuana, but all drugs. And the reason for that is because many of the drugs that we have that are illegal, like mushrooms and even things like I can't think of it off the top of my head. I think ecstasy, but when they're in smaller doses, they actually have medicinal values to do things like.
Let me stop you 1 second. Let me stop you 1 second with the drugs
Sure.
issue. Okay, I don't do any drugs. I don't even take an aspirin. I'm kind of a freak when it comes to that. I remember last time I took probably ibuprofen was probably, I don't know, 20 years ago. But that's not about me.
Yep.
It's about freedom. Okay, at the moment
Yes.
that the government can tell me what I can eat or drink, okay, or smoke, especially when I am the privacy of my own home or in a private place that I do not endanger anybody else. Back to the safety belt. They mean that they tell me that, hey, you slave, I own you. I tell you what you can eat. I tell you what type of fun you can have. I tell you what type of medication you can have. That freaks me out. You know, I'm glad that I don't smoke marijuana. Otherwise, I would be arrested every other day, seriously. Because I refuse the idea that I cannot grow a plant. I mean, now I'm okay. I'm allowed by Holy Master government to grow sage or basil,
Yep.
okay? But remember something, sage can be used also for, you can have vision with sage. If you smoke sage, you can have hallucination. Thank God government doesn't know that, otherwise I cannot have any more my whatever I cook normally with sage, okay? Oh,
I know.
that's the bottom line, guys. You know, it's not about the drug. It's about, first of all, freedom, personal responsibility, and then, of course, as you were saying, you create a product, a value market, just because it's made illegal. If the moment that,
Sure.
the alcohol prohibition, remember that at the time, I mean, we weren't around, but we read history. The moment that the government make a bottle of wine or a glass of beer illegal, that's going to create fuel and big money for the mafia. That's the bottom line. The moment that we make drugs, that you can want to buy a drug, you want to die, go ahead, go to the shop and buy your poison and die in silence wherever you are. But do not start rob, do not start to create drama, and more important, do not give money to these criminal organizations. You know, so that's the reality.
Yep.
But you know, they try always to say, oh, it's not moral. Guess what? You know what? It's not moral that probably 50% of Congress is taking paychecks from, I really believe that there is a big corruption going. If I was a drug cartel leader, I would pay on my paybook all these legislators to keep drugs illegal. Otherwise, my drug business would go out of business. Am I right or wrong? What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is that the other part of the problem is that 40% of our inmates today are non-violent drug offenders. And in Arizona, we have a private prison system where there are contracts that they have to keep the jails 90% full. So part of prohibition is that it serves a dual purpose. It creates these black markets and empowers the drug cartels, which gives them an excuse to say that we need a wall, even though that's not going to be effective because the drug cartels already have tunnels and drones and all these other things. And then on top of that, they can keep people in prison for nonviolent crimes.
Yeah, especially when you.
I don't believe if there's no victim, there should be no crime.
Exactly. I agree, and that's the basic philosophy of every human being that really understands freedom. That's the bottom line, and unfortunately, both parties don't get that. Another question: Second Amendment. You know, normally, I know by fact that the philosophy of the Libertarian Party is very strong about the Second Amendment. The right to the people of keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Period. No comma, no after paragraph. That's it. What is your vision? Should we repeal the 1934 National Firearm Act that pretty much was the first big gun control during the mobster time, with the excuse that, you know, for example, if your shotgun is a 1 inch or half inch shorter than what we tell you, you spend 5 years in jail. You become a felon. Or if your rifle starts to go full auto, yes, you are a felon because you didn't get your stamp. What do you think about? What is your vision about the Second Amendment? Should we do more gun controls, or we should repeal some laws?
So I actually think that ATF should just be eliminated altogether. On my website, MarissaHamilton.com, my second plank on my platform is absolute Second Amendment. And that means that we need to take it a bit further than just guns. The Second Amendment is about the right to bear arms It actually says a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. It doesn't specify guns. It says the right to bear arms. And it says the purpose of it is to have a well-regulated militia. And the point of that is to keep the government at bay. It's the entire purpose of the Second Amendment is a dual purpose of having self-defense, but also to be able to keep your government restrained. And I think that's what the NRA and the Republicans have forgotten about, or they purposely keep us distracted with guns to deflect against what the actual purpose of the Second Amendment is. And so on my website, I lay out the fact that the context of the Second Amendment is that the authors of the Constitution wrote it after winning a war against their government specifically. The purpose of it was to provide a mechanism for defense against tyranny, and the scope of it specifically prohibits all infringement with the purpose of creating a citizen militia equal in power to any government force. Now, I don't advocate that citizens actually go and take up arms against the government at this point, because the government's too powerful. You'll be defeated very quickly. But what it does mean is that we need to hold the Republicans responsible for not just ending their war against self-defense, but also going back to what the actual essence of the Second Amendment is. So I think people need to go back to the NRA and go back to the Republicans and say, stop distracting us simply with talking about guns. Reinstate liberty. Go back to what the actual essence of the Second Amendment was and give us our liberty back. And that's not happening. And so that's why I make the argument that America should start supporting third parties. It's not just about the Libertarian Party, although I find that's the only party that really supports liberty today. But we need a variety of different parties and eventually no parties at all. Because when the messaging is controlled by just a handful of parties, you still lose the essence of what the actual Bill of Rights was intended to do. And so it's not, I would advocate, it's not just about guns. It's about what the mission of the Second Amendment was, which is restraining the government, giving you a mechanism for self-defense against tyranny, and then also just self-defense against danger in general.
Perfect. Lisa, I agree with you completely on this one. Do you have any other opponents in the Libertarian Party for these primaries, or you're the only one?
No, I'm the only one running for U.S. Senate for the primary. To be able to be on the ballot in November, I need 3,066 votes from registered libertarians.
Wow. Okay. And then we will see at this point, it would be fun if one day you had a chance to be in the final debate, I mean, even just between the two, there is, of course, the opportunity between you, the Democrat, and the Republican. That would be nice.
Yeah.
It's going to be hard to see that realistically, but we never know. We're starting. I mean, it's been a big improvement with the Libertarian Party with these elections with Johnson, but I'm very disappointed with the vice president pick, Mr. Bill Weld. Did you ever listen to his interview where he talks about, first of all, the semi-automatic rifles? He consider them like weapons of mass destruction. And if you're on the terrorist watch list, you probably shouldn't buy a gun. Did you ever watch that clip?
Yeah.
What's wrong with him?
Actually, at the Libertarian National Convention, I helped to lead the revolt and the protest against Weld.
Yeah, I mean, this guy is
if anyone wants to go back, it's on YouTube or C-SPAN. We led a huge revolt against Bill Weld for that reason. That's one of the things I appreciate about the Libertarian Party. And as the race has gone on, the Libertarian Party has not supported Johnson and Weld carte blanche. Mm-hmm. When they say things that are against the libertarian principles, that are against liberty, we hold them accountable. And we made Bill Weld promise on stage that he would represent liberty and represent libertarian principles. And when we've seen him falter slightly, you'll see that libertarians will go up against him even more than the other two parties will. And that's because of the fact that we are indeed a party of principle. We will not let politicians take away our liberties, even if they're under the libertarian banner.
Good, because it really freaks me out. I couldn't believe it was coming from a libertarian candidate, and it's still the fact that he's there. I don't know. Maybe it's compromise. Even the Libertarian Party is getting there, but it's really scary. Now, a lot of things, a lot of topics. There are so many important things. I would like to talk with you about foreign aids. Where in the Constitution, we should be forced to pay for somebody else's country debts. Like for example, we had to go to China to max up our credit card, or to the private Federal Reserve to give I don't know many billions of dollars to Israel or to Egypt or to Palestine. What is your position on foreign aids?
So I don't really find foreign aid as something that's constitutional or necessary. It's something that we've done along the years so that we can increase debt, so we can have the Federal Reserve have a job still.
Exactly.
But other than that, I don't really think that it benefits us much. It also doesn't benefit other countries. If you look at, just look at welfare. What welfare has done to the United States. Welfare doesn't help anyone that's poor to get out of welfare. Welfare is an institutional way to trap poorer people to stay in poverty.
Mm-hmm.
There's no one that said welfare helped me become rich. It doesn't.
No.
And it's the same thing when we give welfare to the states or welfare to other countries. We should not be stealing Americans' tax dollars to give other. It's not even enriching other countries. The entire point of welfare or foreign aid to other countries is to really hold them down, to control them. And that's not the best interest for liberty. If we actually were able to help other countries be more libertarian-minded, which is having a non-interventionist foreign policy, then that would allow other countries to have more ingenuity, to embrace capitalism, to let the ingenuity of their own people help make life better for humanity as a whole. And it would help everyone.
Merissa, we're almost out of time. I want to give you the last shot, last 20 seconds, give you a website or whatever way people can reach you out, please.
Sure. On my website, it's MerissaHamilton.com. It's spelled Merissa. I'm on Twitter at Merissa Hamilton, and my Facebook page is at Vote Merissa Hamilton.
Perfect. Guys, thank you very much for listening. Thank you, Merissa, for being on the air on Love, Guns, and Freedom. This is Luca Zanna, ready for our number 2. We have an incredible guest with an incredible product to really give you some information that is priceless. You're listening to Love, Guns, and Freedom with Luca Zanna on United States.fm network.